You're listening to the Uptime Wind Energy Podcast, brought to you by BuildTurbines.com. Learn, train, and be a part of the clean energy revolution. Visit BuildTurbines.com today. Now here's your hosts, Alan Hall, Joel Saxum, Phil Totaro, and Rosemary Barnes.
Well, big news. Innergex Renewable Energy has announced that it will be acquired by CDPQ, a major Canadian pension fund manager, for about $13.75 per share. I've seen a couple different numbers about that. This transaction represents a total enterprise value of approximately $3.6 billion US dollars and marks a substantial consolidation in the wind industry. The deal offers about a 40% premium on Innergex closing share of a couple months ago. So that's a pretty good premium that CDPQ put on Innergex value. And now, Phil, this is part of a larger play of a lot of consolidation. This one in particular, Innergex is going to become a private company after this acquisition. Why?
That's an interesting question because normally when a company gets taken private by a large institutional investor, it's to restructure. Um, I'm not sure that Energex needs that much restructuring per se. I mean, it's not like they've got a huge team to begin with, but a reasonably competent team in terms of the pedigree of their developments, obviously in Canada and throughout Europe as well. And they've been kind of trying to venture off and dip their toe in other markets as well. But the reality of this is that it's a fantastic thing for CDPQ to kind of strengthen their position. And it comes at a point in time when a lot of these Canadian pension funds are looking at the profitability and the returns that they're seeing on their investments globally, including the US right now with all the trade tensions and everything we've got. And I think you're going to see more of these Canadian, pension funds and investors kind of pulling back and doing things that are kind of ignoring the US at this point, looking at deals in Canada, looking at deals in Europe, looking at deals in Southeast Asia and South America for that matter.
I think it makes sense for me, like CDPQ keeping their Canadian money mostly in Canada. However, I know Innergex has a small handful of wind farms in the United States as well. Did you see a reality where just because of geopolitical reasons, they might just sell those couple of wind farms off?
I mean, let's put it this way. Brookfield's not going anywhere and they're always on the hunt for, good assets, but there's other people that could want to gobble up wind assets right now, especially if the assets that Intergex owns in the US, they're kind of not quite ready for repowering yet, but you know, maybe that's part of the play moving forward.
Yeah, I know, like you said, you mentioned Brookfield. Brookfield, same thing. We're talking about market consolidation. They just bought National Grid Renewables not too long ago. And I know National Grid Renewables in the States, right? A handful of wind farms and some solar assets, some other things. So, yes, continuing to see that trend.
Well, I still wonder though if taking them private is a better long-term play because of the turbulence that's going to happen in the next couple of years. It gets rid of all the shareholder complaints and the back and forth and where to save money and whatnot. If you're really trying to look for a longer play, doesn't taking renewable assets, especially large-scale renewable assets, off the public markets the better long-term play? I just think that there's so much turbulence in renewable energy, and it's getting bashed so much that the value is still there, but in the public eye, it's like, well, it doesn't have as much value. But when you're producing power and you're delivering it and getting paid, you're still making money.
Maybe to answer that question, I think, again, the reason that you would take something private is if you want to avoid the scrutiny in general. And the reason to want to avoid the scrutiny at this point is partly what you just described, but I think mainly if you're looking to own and operate for a longer term. This is something. I mean, and look, CDPQ is putting money into something that they're not making a short-term play themselves either. This isn't just, hey, let's buy Innergex to flip it in a year and a half or something. They're, if they're going in like they did with the minority stake that they've got in Innergex or any other investments that they've got and partnerships they've got around the world, on individual projects or with development and owner operator companies, then they're very deliberate about what they've done. So again, taking it private to me feels like they want to, just go about their business for the time being.
Would the Canadian-U.S. tariff exchanges influence that decision a little bit?
Well, not necessarily a take private deal specifically, but you've got a scenario where, again, the Canadian pension funds and institutional investors, which is also going to include, the likes of CDPQ and Brookfield, they are going to make it a point to de-emphasize investments in the US for the time being. Because it's really not even, because look, we've talked about this on the show before. If we end up in a recession and interest rates end up coming down, that's actually really good for investors because they want to plow money in when the cost of money is cheap if interest rates are low. But the reality of it is we're not quite there yet. We're not, all the way into a recession yet. There's everybody still kind of on the fence. What everyone's trying to avoid right now is the chaos that's ensuing from the uncertainty around the tariffs that are either in place, not in place. Now they're in place again. We had Ontario trying to impose tariffs on the energy exports. Now they're not because there was a conversation with the Commerce Department. So who knows what's going to happen? This is the problem. Like, nobody knows what the hell is going to happen tomorrow. So how the hell can you plan financially?
Don't let blade damage catch you off guard. Eelogic's ping sensors detect issues before they become expensive, time-consuming problems. From ice buildup and lightning strikes to pitch misalignment and internal blade cracks, Eelogic's ping has you covered. Their cutting-edge sensors are easy to install, giving you the power to stop damage before it's too late. Visit eelogix-ping.com and take control of your turbine's health today. Well, LM Windpower has announced an extension of its partnership with, of all companies, Enercon, leading wind turbine provider, obviously, through a new contract that will supply LM 78.3 meter blades for Enercon's E160, EP5, E2 wind turbines. These blades are going to be manufactured over in Turkey at the end of this year, and it seems like LM is moving away from manufacturing GE equipment to picking up some work for other manufacturers. We've been noticing this trend for several months now. It does seem like this alliance falls into that bucket of maybe LM is moving on a little bit. But Turkey, the thing about this is LM getting work in Turkey, because it did seem like a lot of companies were starting to pull out of Turkey. Enercon is starting to fill the void. Isn't that what it looks like, Phil?
Yes, although this is slightly confusing because if you remember last year, they were talking about laying everybody off in Turkey at LM and shutting the whole factory because I thought Enercon was working with TPI, who also has a facility there, on the manufacturing of blades. So did something happen? And if so, what? I don't think we know. But also this, this deal, while it's obviously not necessarily bad news for LM, keep in mind there's only like 5 or so gigawatts of order book for these Enercon turbines, that specific model of turbine. So it's not like this is game changing for LM, and it's not like, oh, this is going to save the company. It'll keep a factory in Turkey operational for 18 months while they produce these things, and then after that I don't know what happens because Enercon's not been like the strongest in terms of their global sales lately, so we'll see.
Yeah, so Rosemary, you worked at LM, and as part of some special projects. Of course, you had one that was your general remit. But when things came through the door from other manufacturers of turbines, right? Enercon being one of them. Enercon builds the turbine itself; they don't build their own blades. How was that handled within LM? So did you have any experience with that?
So when I started at LM, there was nothing but other companies' blades, right? LM Windpower didn't make turbines, and so the blades they made were exclusively for other manufacturers, to put on other manufacturers' turbines. And then a couple of years into my time at LM, I think it must have been about 2018 or something, they got bought by GE, who had been one of their main customers, one of the biggest customers, and wanted to, I guess, reduce some of the supply chain uncertainty by bringing that in house. And at the time, there was lots and lots of reassurances of, we wouldn't have paid so much for the company if we didn't want you to still be making blades for other customers, and nothing is going to change there. There was a lot of effort put into, they call them Chinese walls, right? Where just because you're working on one manufacturer's technology, you just can't go and work on their competitors and tell them all their secrets and stuff like that. So, I'd say that they did that as well as they probably could have. Not perfect, I'm sure. But yeah, as time's gone on, I think that a lot of the other manufacturers got a little bit didn't feel super duper comfortable. Even with those things in place, there is of course still the worry that you're just telling your your competitor all of everything they need to know to just copy what you're doing. So I think people got less keen on it. So yeah, in a sense, like when I left LM, it was only a couple of years into the merge, and really things didn't feel that different in terms of working for other manufacturers. But I'm sure that 5 years later it does, and so this is maybe more of a big deal now. But yeah, to me, it's just the way that every project was. It didn't make any difference if a blade was to be made for GE versus any of the other manufacturers.
I know, Alan, with some of our work we've done with lightning protection in India, we've seen Enercon turbines with LM blades, and I think we've seen Envision turbines with LM blades in India as well, haven't we?
Yes, we have, definitely.
I think LM made blades for maybe literally every single manufacturer. There were a few that they didn't make many for. I know Vestas was one that they were continuously chasing and had never, at the time I was working there, they had never really done a lot for Vestas and were always wanting to. But for the most part, I'm pretty sure that they had at least dabbled with every single OEM. And I myself had some meetings at Enercon for a de-icing, a blade that had de-icing systems, and it was very it was culturally very different to other manufacturers that I had worked with. I worked a lot with GE and a bit with Siemens Gamesa, and I just did some introductory meetings at Enercon, and it was exactly like you would expect the German engineering stereotype to, exactly like that would tell you. They really wanted things optimized. I'm much more of you make things as good as they need to be and not better, because when you make them better, you make them more expensive, you make them take longer, you can often add extra points of failure that didn't need to be there if the feature is a bit unnecessary. But when you talk to maintenance personnel, service teams, they love servicing Enercon turbines. I've heard it described over and over again as the Mercedes of wind turbines. They say, I've never climbed one, but they say that when you get up there, it is like the interior of a luxury yacht or something.
As wind energy professionals, staying informed is crucial, and let's face it, difficult. That's why the Uptime Podcast recommends PES Wind Magazine. PES Wind offers a diverse range of in-depth articles and expert insights that dive into the most pressing issues facing our energy future. Whether you're an industry veteran or new to wind, PES Wind has the high-quality content you need. Don't miss out. Visit peswind.com today.
Isn't it true with Enercon as well that they won't sell a turbine unless they get the maintenance contract?
In Germany, yes. I think they've had to relent in other countries because, again, financiers may not allow that to, it's just, oh, this is way too expensive, because like a lot of OEMs, no matter how much an Enercon turbine costs, when they're also selling the maintenance package, they're trying to make whatever they feel like they lost on the upfront capex and turbine cost up with the long-term service contract. So, they it just kind of depends on which market. Definitely in Germany, I don't think they'll sell a turbine unless it's their maintenance, because they are so well-oiled, and you could probably argue almost all of Western Europe. They're so well-oiled in terms of, I heard a story once when I was at Clipper. This would have been around 2009, where there was a Enercon turbine in Germany that had a nacelle fire, and they literally had a brand new nacelle in 24 hours. Like they had they had been able to swap out a new nacelle and had the turbine back up and running within 24 hours of that fire, which is just astonishing. I mean, but you're paying for it. Like Rosie's talking about. I mean, you're paying for it.
That's the kind of benefit that you would expect to see when you have a OEM service agreement, right? That they have the ability to keep an inventory of spare parts and, nearby, and they can just swap stuff out and everything's very fast. But we don't see in Australia where those kind of agreements are very common. We don't see that kind of preferential treatment, that's for sure. And then the second thing is that maybe technically the OEMs aren't requiring that if you buy their turbines, you have to buy their service agreements. But it's almost like a strongman kind of sales tactic. It's like, sure, you can, self-support this, self-service this, but good luck getting any spare parts for it. Good luck getting any help if you've got a warranty claim. And they kind of like pressure so much that you have no choice, which to me, like I would rather that they were just honest, that they're like, we can't make a profit on the turbine without the service, so you have to buy the service. Like that, I would rather know and have it be honest about it than pretend like you've got a choice, but you're just going to be, like bullied and this thuggery to to force you into using them, or they'll go out of their way to make your life hard.
And this, I mean, frankly, this is also what's been talked about lately, is that with people not being able to get access to spares for some, older turbines and older models of blade, there are companies out there that are having the conversation: do we just reverse engineer, one of these blades? Do we just buy one and scan it and figure out the aero profiles, and then we already know how to manufacture a blade of that style anyway, so we're just going to do our own version. And there are OEMs that are discussing that literally right now because they want to be able to sell spare parts, basically, and it probably extends beyond blades, but they want to be able to sell spare parts to a market that is thirsty for spare parts. And it's certainly happening. It's conversations that are happening in the US, but I could imagine it's something that they would talk about in Australia too, because access to spares down there is also, quite finite and or time consuming to get your hands on.
Yeah, well, one of the things, I mean, even, back in my early LM days, that was one of the things that I learned early on, because I was shocked at the secrecy, and everyone kind of rolled their eyes and said it's so dumb anyway, because the big customers, like if they buy, hundreds of turbines worth of blades, then they buy one extra blade and slice it up into, I don't know, like, 100 millimeter slices, and then they can easily reverse engineer. Maybe they don't know exact materials, although I'm sure that it wouldn't be too hard to do that either. Like, you're not going to get 100% of the way there, but I do think you could get like 95% of the way there, and do your own engineering on top to do the analysis to make sure it's okay. So that's why I think that the excessive secrecy is silly, because you sell the product, you're not in control of it anymore. Once it's left you, then why is it impossible to get from the OEM just like a simple line drawing that tells you where within the blade the lightning cable goes, for instance? Like there's just no reason for them to be so like just to have their white knuckled grip on those drawings that they can't even share basic information like that you need to use their product properly, when all you need to do is just, you don't even need to buy a spare one. Just wait till you've got a failure and like, okay, we're not scrapping this blade, we're slicing it. And, then you'll get all the information you need. But with a harmed relationship between customer and supplier, I don't feel the need to make such an adversarial relationship over that.
The wind farm of the week this week is inspired by our ACP OMS trip last week to Nashville. And it is one of the only wind farms within the state of Tennessee. It's called the Buffalo Mountain Wind Farm. It's an old one. It's been around for a long time. Started in October of 2000. So it's in Anderson County, Tennessee.
and it was the home of the first commercial wind generation facility in the southeastern United States. It's owned by the Tennessee Valley Authority, TVA, which is also the nation's largest public power company, which I did not know. They started by building 3 turbines up on top of a former strip coal mine. So these were 660 kilowatt turbines, and they powered about 400 homes. But then they expanded the wind farm in 2004 after it was successful to have 15 turbines. So as of April 2003, they've had 15 turbines, and they're producing about 9,500 megawatt hours of electricity per year. The cool thing about this, like I was saying, though, is this wind farm is located at the top of an abandoned or backfilled reclaimed coal mine. So the Coal Creek Mining Company was a part of this thing, and it was a part of TVA's Green Switch program. So this is using an formerly operated strip mine in Tennessee to produce renewable green energy with a 29 megawatt wind farm. Invenergy works with TVA to run it. So the Buffalo Mountain Wind Farm in Tennessee, you are the wind farm of the week.
That's going to do it for this week's Uptime Wind Energy Podcast. Thanks for listening. Please give us a 5-star rating on your podcast platform and subscribe in the show notes below to Uptime Tech News, or weekly Substack newsletter. And subscribe to Engineering with Rosie, because she's going to hit 100,000 subscribers sometime over the next week or two. And we'll see you here next week on the Uptime Wind Energy Podcast.